Player ratings then, Everton 3, Burnley 1. I've calmed down a little bit. Very excited in the instant match reaction if you haven't checked that one out. What a win for Everton. Again, not the greatest first half performance, not the greatest first half of football, really, was it? It was pretty abysmal, but Everton certainly weren't very good. And even leading into the second half, the opening 15-20 minutes, we weren't very good either. But Rafa Benitez once again changed the system, changed the formation, brought in Andre Gomez, and then we just lit up. Didn't we? We become electric from that point on. Andros Townsend, absolutely fantastic. Michael Keane, brilliant header. Damari Gray, excellent. And yeah, you know, we turned it on. And, you know, although it was amazing to be back at Goodison under the lights, and although it was amazing for Everton to put in a second half performance like that, obviously there's room to improve, and that room to improve is making sure that we're not sitting here saying what a bad first half and what a great second half. We should be, we want to be sitting here saying what an amazing first half and what an amazing second half. But anyway, that's all for the instant match reaction. I've tried to keep it as balanced as possible. Let's get into the player ratings. Jordan Pickford then starting off in goal. I'm going to give Jordan an 8. Really solid performance today. Don't think he's at fault for the goal. I haven't seen the replay yet, but it seems like a pretty standard Everton goal to concede at this point, really. Ball into the box. Ben Mee climbs higher than anybody else. Not really put under any real pressure and heads into the back of the net. Don't really think you can blame Jordan for that one. And then for the rest of the game, he was solid. He didn't have an awful lot to do. A couple of tricky shots hit at him. I think Dwight McNeil had a couple in the second half which could have potentially troubled him, but he dealt with them well. Got his hands to the ball and sort of calmed the play down. Just sort of kept hold of it and made sure that the pressure that Everton were under in those periods was just sort of drowned out. You could see him vocally screaming and shouting at the back line multiple times throughout the first half. I was sat in the park end and you can see him, having a go at Michael Keane, having a go at Ben Godfrey, telling them why Burnley allowed that much space in the box, showing his leadership qualities. And like I said, didn't have an awful lot to do, didn't have an awful lot of great saves to make, made a couple of easy saves that you would expect them to make, really. But I just think his communication, I think his outball today, his distribution was good as well. And yeah, he done exactly what he needed to do when he needed to do it. So Jordan is getting an 8. Luca Dean's getting a 7. Maybe a little bit lucky to get a 7, to be honest with you, because I'm in a good mood. But I thought his set plays today were poor, and I have been for a couple of weeks now. I love Luca Dean as much as the next Evertonian. I really do. I think he's absolutely brilliant. He's magic, that lad. The best left back in the league and arguably one of the best left backs in world football. But this season, he just hasn't seemed to hit the ground running with his set plays, corners, free kicks. He either seems to go over everybody and out for a throw in, or it doesn't clear the first man, and that's not really it's not really what you want. You want your corner taker to be throwing balls into dangerous areas, and typically that's what you get with Luca Dean. Sorry, there was a fly in the corner of my room there, so I had to catch it. Typically that's what you get with Luca Dean. You get those absolutely brilliant balls into the box and that fantastic delivery that you would expect from him, but just today and a couple of times this season, he hasn't managed to be able to do it. I've got no doubt that he'll improve. No doubt that he'll go away on the training ground, work hard, and get those sorted, as well as again balls from open play coming into the box. I think they need improving as well. But defensively, I thought he was solid, had a decent game. He was getting forward a lot in the second half when we started to get a bit of momentum as well, and playing some nice passes and getting into some good areas as well. So I don't think he'd done anything wrong. I just think he could improve on those balls into the box. But maybe that's just a little bit of a bad run of form for him, and I've got no doubt that he will improve on that. So Luca Dean is getting in a 7. Michael Keane is getting an 8. Don't care. Michael Keane's getting an 8. First half, a bit shaky. Didn't really do anything massively wrong, but there was a couple of times where he just allowed Chris Wood and Ashley Barnes to have far too much space and far too much time in our box to take the ball down, control the ball, play it back. It was a bit mad how many times Ashley Barnes or Chris Wood, one of the two, was able to take the ball down in the box and move it on under very little pressure from any of the centre half, really. It wasn't just Michael Keane, but like I said, you could see vocally at times Jordan Pickford having a go at him and saying to him, what's going on, you need to clear that. There was a cross that come in the first half that one of the two strikers should have scored. If we're being perfectly honest, it was an absolute sitter from a Burnley point of view, and Michael Keane just doesn't get anywhere near the ball, and you're sort of thinking, is it going to be another one of those days for Michael Keane? Is it going to be another one of those nights where he's got a mistake in him and it ends up costing Everton. But to be fair to him, he come out in the second half. Obviously, he got the goal early on in the second half to equalise. Brilliant ball in by Andros Townsend, but a fantastic header, to be fair, by Michael Keane. Really, really good header. And then his confidence just went up a level. Look, we know Michael Keane's a player who plays on confidence, and whether that's a good thing or a bad thing is up for discussion. But we know when he's confident, he's very good, and when he's not confident, he's not very good. Today, when he scored that goal, I think it gave him an absolute whirlwind of confidence, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, he dealt with everything he needed to deal with. He headed every ball out that he had to head it out. And, every time he had to play it back to Jordan Pickford, he did so. If there was any danger, he snuffed it out. He dealt with it. He played a couple of really, really nice passes as well into the forward lines for the attackers to get onto. So I actually thought he impressed today, certainly in that second half. I don't think he put a foot wrong. He scored a brilliant header to get us back in the game at a really important time as well, when we went 1-0 down and the crowd was sort of a bit flat, and you were sort of sitting there thinking, how do we get back in this game? Because we've been dreadful in the first half and now we're 1-0 down, and he got that goal back at a really important point. So Michael Keane is getting an 8. Yerry Mina for me is getting an 8 as well. Again, second half, I thought he was, as typically is, absolutely brilliant. Everything that come at him, he dealt with. He threw himself on the floor, especially when, we reverted back to sort of a forward-back formation and Ben Godfrey come on. I just thought he dealt with everything really, really well. Again, like I said, he's a ball magnet, Yerry Mina. I've said it before and I'll say it again. He's an absolute ball magnet. Every time the ball is anywhere near him, he deals with it, whether it's in the air, whether it's on the floor, whether it's bouncing around, he deals with it. And he did so again today on multiple occasions. So Yerry is getting an 8. Ben Godfrey is getting a 7. Do you know what? I don't think Ben had a bad game whatsoever by any stretch of the imagination. I don't think he done anything wrong. He probably could have been a little bit more alive to some of the crosses in the first half, but he wasn't at fault for anything. I just think it's clear to see that Ben isn't at that optimal level of fitness that we'd like him to be at. And again, that's no problem. He's been out. We know he was out, obviously isolating for a while. He hasn't had a lot of game. He hasn't had any game time. He hasn't had a lot of time to prepare, to train. He was straight in at the deep end today against a big, tough, physical side in Burnley. And like I said, he didn't particularly do anything wrong. It just wasn't the vintage Ben Godfrey performance that we're used to seeing. And I suppose that's a massive that's a massive compliment towards Ben Godfrey is that he can put a performance in like today where you look and you think, didn't really put a foot wrong, didn't really do anything, bad. However, that's not the Ben Godfrey that we're used to. We're used to seeing him fearlessly pick the ball up and drive forward and bring it forward and take players on. He usually goes on those, Maraden runs straight up the line, and he didn't do any of that today. And personally, for me, like I said, maybe it was the game plan, maybe it was the instruction by the manager. Personally, I think it's because he just isn't at that level of fitness to probably confidently do that. And, every time he was picking the ball up, he was sort of just looking to give it off. But again, he was calm, he was cool, he was collected on the ball. So he is getting a 7. Seamus Coleman's getting an 8. Again, real captain's performance by Seamus Coleman today in the face of the Burnley players when they were gathering around the referee, picking the ball up and moving it forward. And considering that we were saying only a couple of days ago that, if Seamus starts, is it going to be a case of him starting at 60-70%, and are we going to see that level of performance we need to see? We did today. He was everywhere. A couple of nice little bits of skill down that right-hand side in the first half. Defended everything he needed to well. Got back when he needed to as well. Obviously, was supported by Andros Townsend in that first half, but got back when he needed to. Battled, worked hard, brought the ball forward, very clever on the ball, held it up when he needed to, and I just thought it was a very solid performance, certainly in that second half by Seamus, so he is getting an 8. Alan in the midfield, 8.5 today for me. Once again, that second half, he was everywhere. He was absolutely everywhere. And some people might say, Cam, your scores are very generous considering that we were dreadful for 60 minutes and we were good for half an hour. And that's fair enough, but I just thought Alan in that last half an hour, he was an absolute bulldozer in the middle of the park. He was picking every ball up. He was battling. He was fighting. He was moving it forward when he needed to. And when he lost it, he got back in and he won it again. He was throwing the challenges in. He was physical. And also, one thing I've noticed as well since being back at the game, and it's interesting this because you don't really notice this on the television, because usually when the ball's not in play, the cameras are towards one of the managers, or they're aiming towards a certain player on the pitch, or a referee or whatever. But one thing I've noticed a lot since being back at the game and since being able to watch Alan in the flesh is anytime an Everton player makes a tackle, he's always the first one there. You know, when Richarlison went off and obviously didn't look very happy, which is fine. I don't really begrudge Richarlison for that. Alan was the first person over there as if to pat him on the back and go, listen lad, you've played well, smile. Whenever anybody sort of wins the ball, he's straight over there, wins a foul, he's straight over there. He's a real leader, Alan, a real leader, and that's exactly what we've needed in the middle of the park. We saw it against Brighton with the penalty situation, but if you actually watch him in the flesh in real life and just focus on Alan, he's doing that constantly. He's constantly going over to his teammates, he's constantly patting them on the back, he's constantly, you know, again, either telling them well done or telling them to get themselves up and go again. And I just thought in that second half, he was everywhere, absolutely everywhere today, so he's getting an 8.5. Abdoulaye Doucouré, he is getting an 8.5 as well. Again, struggled in the first half to settle into the game, a lot of misplaced passes, a lot of, you know, not holding on to the ball when he needed to hold on to the ball, and you know, all of a sudden, you know, losing it in silly areas. But in the second half, again, he come alive. Brilliant ball, I believe, I think it was Doucouré anyway. Brilliant ball for the goal, for Damari Gray's goal in... and yet, like I said, holding the ball up, finding the passes, moving the ball, should have, you know, arguably scored himself. But again, getting involved, battling, working hard, scored the offside goal, of course, which was disallowed. But again, he was in the right area, he put the ball in the back of the net. Just, I think Alan and Abdoulaye Doucouré are two players that really feed off that atmosphere, really feed off that energy, and you could see that first half, the performance was very flat and the atmosphere was very flat. As soon as the atmosphere built up after Michael Keane's goal, even Andros Townsend's goal, you could see the two centre midfielders were like, it was like, oh my god, this is amazing, and they just fed off that atmosphere, they fed off that energy. I thought Doucouré was very good today, so he is getting an 8.5. Damari Gray then, he's getting a 9. 3 goals, 3 games, 1.5 million. You don't even find bargains like that in Home Bargain or Bargain World or any of your other bargain retailers that are on the world. You know, many others are available, by the way. You don't find bargains like that there. The old pound set, you used to find some belter bargains in there. None like Damari Gray. What a player. What a player. Not just his goal today, but I thought in the first half he was the best Everton player on the pitch. He was picking the ball up, he was moving it forward, he was actively, you could see him trying to make things happen. And although he wasn't giving a lot of service, same with Andros Townsend, he was doing a lot of defensive work in that first half. Same with Richarlison, he was battling but wasn't getting a lot of service. Damari Gray was still picking the ball up and was still actively trying to create. He was using his feet well. Absolutely brilliant feet, by the way. He's like a magician, that lad, with his feet. Brilliant feet, in and out, picking the ball up, winning it, getting back, throwing challenges in, winning the ball in midfield as well. And then his goal, you know, you go one-on-one with the goalkeeper, and to be fair, you expect most Premier League forwards to put that in the back of the net. But we know ourselves as Evertonians that typically Everton players struggle in those situations, but he didn't. Calmly slots it past Nick Pope, and it's absolutely brilliant by Damari Gray. 3 goals in 3 games, like I said. This time the knee slide, no problems with it whatsoever. Brilliant again, and yeah, top performance. So he is getting a 9. Andros Townsend, man of the match, then 9.5. Just talked about bargains with Damari Gray. I mean, there's a mouse mat on my desk that probably cost about 30p, but it cost 30p more than Andros Townsend did. What a player. What a player. Not the greatest the first half, but to be fair, like I said before, a lot of his work was done battling defensively and trying to win the ball back, and you know, again, like I said, helping Seamus Coleman as much as possible. I just don't think the formation or the system worked in favour of any of the forwards in the first half, certainly not Andros Townsend. But as soon as the system changed in that second half, even before the system changed, brilliant ball in for Michael Keane's goal. Absolutely brilliant cross, finds Michael Keane perfectly. Michael Keane obviously does a lot of work with the header, but brilliant cross. And then the goal, oh my god, that lad has got a rocket for a left foot, mate. An absolute rocket. So he reminds me of the fella from the James Bond films who's got the hat, and he spins the hat, and it's like this magic hat that can like take heads off and all that. Like that's what Andros Townsend's left foot's like. On appearance, you go, it's only a left foot like anybody else's left foot, but then he lets fly with that, you know, and that ball comes off it, and you start to think, Jesus, if he's not careful, NASA will be sponsoring that left foot soon. It's an absolute rocket, mate. An absolute rocket. What a goal. A worldie. Once again, he very nearly scored another worldie 2 or 3 minutes after. Nick Pope makes a brilliant save. He should have had another one in the other corner, but it was an absolute astonishing goal. And as I said in the instant match reaction, I can get used to these going to Goodison Park and seeing players lash balls in from, 20 yards and into the top, rifling them into the top corner. I can get used to that, mate, all day, every day. Give me that every week. But no, an absolutely brilliant performance by Andros Townsend. Worked hard in the first half, battled, wasn't really involved going forward, but showed his quality in the second half, not only with the goal, but with the assist as well. Absolutely brilliant, and he is getting a 9.5. And then Richarlison, finally, I'm going to give Richie a 7.5 today. I think he worked hard. Look, it was evident that he wasn't very happy to go off. He never is very happy to go off. And I think the reason for that was probably because he was looking at the game thinking, this is a real opportunity for me to go and get a goal, for me to add to my goal tally, maybe get a couple, especially when we went, 3-1 up in the space of 6 minutes, and then we scored another one, which was disallowed. Obviously, he didn't look happy to come off. I've got no issue with that. That, for me, is a player saying, I'm fuming there because I wanted to score. I could have scored. Maybe he could have done it a bit professionally. Maybe he could have done it a little bit better, and maybe he could have acted like, everything's all right, but I'm not that happy. But he doesn't hide his emotions. This is a lad who isn't afraid to show us if he's not happy or he is happy. And again, he'll be sound now. He'll be on his way home now, absolutely sound. But he just wasn't happy in that moment to come off because he wanted to stay on and he wanted to score. And that's only a positive for me. But overall today, look, he worked hard, he battled, he fought, he was under a lot of pressure. He was isolated for large parts of the game. He was coming up against a couple of big centre-halves who did nothing but kick all game, and he dealt with them well. He picked the ball up, he held the ball well, a couple of really nice passes, got other players involved going forward as well. I thought he had a decent game, Richarlison, so he's getting a 7.5. Onto the subs then, Andre Gomez is getting an 8. Changed the game, not only because it was the change of system and the change of formation, but I thought him coming on personally, I thought he'd done really well, held the ball up really well, moved it well, just calmed it down when it needed to be calmed down, sucked up the Burnley pressure when he needed to as well. Very nearly had a goal, should have had a goal in fact, puts one just wide of the post. I'm not too sure if it was offside or not, but puts one just wide of the post, should have had a goal. But yeah, again, really solid performance coming off the bench. That's the third time he's done that coming off the bench this season now, second time where he's come off and he's actually, again, he's changed the game. He's had a positive impact on the game. Thought he'd done really well today, so he is getting an 8. Alex Iwobi's getting a 6. Come on, picked the ball up a couple of times. Again, played a really nice ball across the box towards the end of the game, which should have resulted in a goal, but it didn't. But again, he was lively, he was getting forward, he was causing issues to the Burnley defence, but he wasn't on the pitch for long enough, really, was he? So Alex is getting a 6, and then Solomon Rondon is getting a 6 as well. Nice to see him come on for his debut. Of course, didn't really have much involvement in the game, but again, you could see that when he come on, Burnley was sort of looking, thinking, oh my God, he's a handful to deal with, and that's what you want. That's what you want. And ultimately, look, Solomon Rondon with Dominic Calvert-Lewin's injury might feature a lot more from the start over the next coming weeks. So, Rafa Benitez has to be able to ensure that he's fit and match fit to be able to do that. And then Rafa Benitez, finally, I've given him an 8.5. Really good change of system in the second half. Really good performance in the second half. But realistically, we want to be sitting here on the instant match reaction of the player rating saying, what an unbelievable game of football by Everton. What an unbelievable 90 minutes. We can't today, and we couldn't against Southampton. We can sit here and say the second half was electric. We were boss. We were amazing. But the reality is, we don't want to be seeing that first half. The system wasn't right. The performance wasn't good enough. And yes, he changed it. And all credit to Rafa Benitez for changing it. That's why he gets a high score. But I just want to be in a position where we don't have to change it because it's going well from the start. Maybe that's too much to ask for, but there you go. Look, that is the end of this video. If you have enjoyed it, please do hit that like button. It does only take a second. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe as well. Don't forget to check out the instant match reaction if you haven't already, and we'll be back with the live game review tomorrow, so join us for that one. Massive thanks for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, and we'll see you soon. Get in, up the toffees. See you after.